Hi everyone. Today we're going to learn a little bit about decimals. In order to learn a little bit about decimals, we're also going to discuss the relationship between fractions and decimals and how that relationship and our background knowledge on fractions can really help me better understand what decimals are, what they look like, and what they represent. So let's start with reviewing what fractions are and introducing the definition and the concept of decimals. So what are fractions? As you know, fractions represent equal parts of a whole or a collection. If you're a proper fraction, you're worth less than one whole. And as an example, we have 3/4 here. I have 3 out of the 4 pieces, and the 4 represents the total amount of pieces that make the whole. So what is a decimal? A decimal is defined as a number whose whole number part is separated by a decimal point. The digits following the decimal point show a value smaller than 1. And that is a lot of words to say the following. The first thing is, there are place values to the right of the ones place, and they are separated from the whole numbers by a decimal point. The other thing is, those new place values that we're learning about today are just like fractions worth less than 1. They represent a part of a whole. So let's learn a little bit more about the place value, what that looks like, and what they represent and are worth. So once again, to the right of the ones place, there is a decimal point, and that decimal point is very, very, very important. It lets me know, it lets you know, it lets everyone know that the values to the right are less than 1. The second thing is that we should know that just like all other place values that we already know and that we're comfortable with, every time I move to the right on this place value chart, my numbers become 10 times smaller. Every time I move to the left, it becomes 10 times bigger. Therefore, then ones in our head, although it's always been there, stops being the smallest place value. The next one is the tenths place. And I want you to think about, and I like to use the example of money when it comes to fractions, decimals, etc. The tenths are like dimes. They're worth 10 cents. And I need 10 of them to make one whole. Immediately to the right of the tenths place is the hundredths place. And they're like pennies. I need 10 of them to make one dime, and I need 100 of them to make ones. Therefore, the tenths place is 10 times bigger than the hundredths place. And I like to emphasize that. Why? Because I don't want you to be thrown off by the name. Tenths, TH, are 10 times bigger than hundredths. So let's talk a little bit more about that. If you notice, I made sure to include a fraction here, because for the first 2 place values to the right of the decimal, they're completely tied to fractions with a denominator of 10 and a denominator of 100. So for example, if I have 9/10 as a fraction, I know that equals 9 in the tenths place, or 9/10. We say it and we read it, even though they don't look the same, they sound the same, and are worth the same. So let's do a few examples so we have a better understanding of this. So place value chart, especially when we're starting to get to know and get more comfortable with fractions, decimals, is very, very, very helpful. Trust me, I know this. Use it. Use it to your advantage. Use it to better understand it. Use it to practice until you're more comfortable with decimals. So the first fraction here is 8/10. And as I mentioned, I know that the tenths with denominator of 10 helps me know that it goes with the place value of tenths. And I have 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And just like when we have whole numbers, if I have 10 or more, I can regroup them. Here I only have 8, so I have 8 in the tenths place. I do not forget my decimal. My decimal is incredibly important, my decimal point. And I don't need to add the 0 for the ones place, but that is fine if you want to add it. If you also want to be comfortable and get more used to it, you can also add zeros to anything that is blank. That should also tell you that 8 tens is the same as 80 hundreds. And think about it, if I have 8 dimes, I have 80 pennies. So 8 tens equals 8 equals 0 and 8 tenths. And I say and because the correct way of saying that decimal point is to say the whole numbers and then and whatever place value comes next. The second one, as I look at it in a fraction, is 9 hundredths. So I have 9 in the hundreds place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I know that 9 is less than 10, so I don't have to regroup. So I have 9 here, and I have to make sure to include all the zeros to the left of it. Why? Because I want 9 hundredths is not the same as 9 tenths. The 0 here does make a difference. So 900 equals 0 and 9 hundredths, and I'm going to say it not in the proper math way so you understand it. 9 hundredths equals 0.09. Let's do a third one, and this is important, and I think it really shows the relationship between tenths and hundredths. So here I have 25 hundredths. And I'm going to draw it out. I know, 25 place values. If you're my student, you know I'm pretty quick at drawing them though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 hundredths. The first thing you should tell yourself is, just like in whole numbers, every time I have 10 of them, I can regroup and move to the left. I have 25. That is definitely more than 10. So I take 10 of them and I move them to the tens place, and because I'm trading, it becomes 1. And remember to use that money analogy or connection. If I have 10 pennies and I trade it for a dime, I get 1 dime. I've used 10 of them, I have 15. I can still group 10 of them. So 10 more go to the tens place, and now I'm left with 5. In the hundreds place, I cannot regroup anymore. Now I can write down what each of them is worth. I have 5 in the hundreds place, 2 in the tens place, and nothing in the ones place. So 25 hundredths in decimal form is 0.25, or how we probably say it, 0 and 25 hundredths. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of better understanding to decimals. Next week we'll continue to learn more and more about them and how we apply them to real life. Have a great day.